Let's talk about every LEGO Star Wars Twi'lek minifigure ever made, including the brand new for 2023 Hera, based upon her appearance in the brand new Star Wars series Ahsoka. What's up, LEGO fans, and welcome back to my channel, Pete's Bricks, the LEGO channel for the common LEGO fan. The oldest LEGO Star Wars Twi'lek minifigure first appeared over 2 decades ago, and since then, LEGO fans have been getting all sorts of different Twi'lek minifigures. In Star Wars, the most recognizable part of the Twi'lek are their leku, which are those two big tube things that come out of their head that look like tails. So every LEGO Star Wars minifigure of a Twi'lek has had those two head tube things. There have been a total of 8 different LEGO Star Wars Twi'lek minifigures, so let's go ahead and get right into the video with the first one. The first LEGO Twi'lek figure ever made is none other than Bib Fortuna from Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Though I will say he is pretty noticeably outdated compared to today's LEGO minifigure standards, there are still reasons why I like this minifigure. One of those being the nostalgia. If you grew up playing LEGO Star Wars 2 or LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, just like I did, this is the version of the minifigure that you see in the game, as when the game came out, they used a lot of older versions of LEGO Star Wars minifigures. So if you grew up with the LEGO Star Wars games like I did, and you want to go and collect all the different minifigures that you saw in that game, whether for your personal collection or maybe you're building some complete saga themed mocks, you're going to need this older version of Bib Fortuna as opposed to the newer ones that we are going to check out later in this video. You can find this Bib Fortuna in only one set, that is set 4475 Jabba's Message from 2003, which retailed for only $7. So that first figure came out in 2003. The next Twi'lek minifigure we got came out in 2010, and that is the Clone Wars version of Aayla Secura, Jedi Master. First of all, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the Clone Wars style. In 2008, I believe, 2008 is when LEGO started making Clone Wars sets based off of the Clone Wars animated movie and then the Clone Wars animated show. But instead of giving the minifigures just normal standard LEGO eyes and a standard LEGO Star Wars style, the LEGO group decided to give them more of a cartoony appearance so that they would better match what we saw in the TV show. That means exaggerated caricature-like expressions and giant eyes. Now, today, LEGO fans, LEGO adults, LEGO affles like to complain about these. They say, oh, they look bad, oh, they're terrible, they're the stuff of nightmares. And while some of what they say might be true, I can tell you as an actual child who grew up with these Clone Wars minifigures, I did not mind at all. I recognize, yeah, they looked a bit different than the other Star Wars figures I have, but they were fun. They were fun to play with, they looked cool. We got so many great minifigures through the Clone Wars, just like this Aayla Secura, whom we had never gotten before until this minifigure. This is also the first time we got more of a proper Twi'lek headpiece, as Bib Fortuna's is entirely unique to his character. So we got the first more standard looking Twi'lek headpiece with the 2 leku and the headband across the top. This headpiece and most of this minifigure comes in the color of medium blue, which is very interesting since the next version of the character, which we'll look at later, comes in a completely different blue color. So this shade of blue for this character is completely exclusive to the Clone Wars version. Now, the only thing that doesn't really make sense to me are the gray hands used for this minifigure. I decided to go look up some pictures of her appearance from the Clone Wars and not the movies, because maybe she wore gloves, but she did not at all. I'm not sure why LEGO decided to give her gray hands instead of just medium blue hands, as those would have been way more accurate. Maybe she wore gloves in some concept art, or maybe they just didn't want to make blue hands. I don't know, but to me, having the wrong colored hands isn't enough to make this figure bad by any means. You can find this minifigure in one set, set 8098 Clone Turbo Tank from 2010. Jumping ahead 2 years to 2012, we have a brand new version of Bib Fortuna, who in my opinion is the best Bib Fortuna ever made. So from the first Bib Fortuna to this one, it's been 9 years, and since then, LEGO Star Wars minifigures have improved vastly. This 2012 Fortuna clearly is a modern update on a classic minifigure, and it shows. The prints are more detailed, more crisp, and I especially like his creepy facial expression with those creepy teeth. This Bib Fortuna actually uses the exact same headpiece as his predecessor, only it comes in a different color. Whereas the original came in tan, this version comes in light nougat. You can find this minifigure in only one set, 9516 Jabba's Palace from 2012. But Bib Fortuna is not the only Twi'lek to come in that Jabba's Palace set. In that set, you can also find one more Twi'lek minifigure who I might say is even more interesting and is definitely more valuable than Jabba's right-hand man himself. This is Jabba's dancer Ula, as seen in Jabba's Palace in Episode 6. Right now on Bricklink, if you want a new version of this minifigure, you're going to have to pay at least $50, which in my opinion is kind of expensive for a minifigure. Now, there were rumors of a new 18+ diorama Jabba's Palace set, which might include this minifigure, though it was a rumor, and personally I don't put any weight in what rumors say, mainly because they've been wrong so many times before. Even if we do get a new Jabba's Palace set, we'll probably get a new Bib Fortuna, a new Jabba of course, but I have my doubts whether or not we will ever see a new version of Ula ever again. Taking a closer look at this minifigure, it's 2012, so we've reached a point where LEGO Star Wars minifigures really go with modern ones. There's not too much of a difference between how figures looked then and how they look now. All the 2012 minifigures and forward should go perfectly with your current LEGO Star Wars collection. The prints are nice, they're on point. I especially like the netting on the minifigure. You get all the little holes in the netting. Very nice attention to detail, very quality LEGO figure. Two expressions on her head, one scared when she gets thrown down into the Rancor pit, and a smiling expression when everything is going okay. Like I said, I highly doubt that we're going to get another Ula minifigure ever again. I have some theories, but please let me know in the comments. What are your theories? Do you think we're going to get an Ula minifigure and I'm just talking nonsense? Or do you also agree with me and don't think that LEGO would make this minifigure again for certain reasons? Now we're jumping forward to 2014 and we're switching things up from Jabba's dancer to the rebel fighter and General Hera Syndulla. This version of Hera is the only Twi'lek minifigure to be featured in two different sets. While this Hera minifigure is based off of her animated Star Wars Rebels appearance, at this point LEGO has abandoned trying to replicate the animated look as they did in the Clone Wars figures that we saw with Aayla Secura. So at this point we have normal eyes, normal prints, and this Hera minifigure is able to pair nicely with all of your other Star Wars minifigures without having that jarring different art style as we saw in the Clone Wars figures. Though she does have green eyes instead of the normal black ones that most minifigures have, which I think are pretty cool. I like the dark tan arms, and the orange contrasts nicely with the lime green on her head and her headpiece. The two sets she was released in are set 75053 The Ghost from 2014 and then set 75127 The Ghost Microfighter from 2016. Even though she was released in two different sets, including a very cheap $10 one, which is the Microfighter, this Hera still goes on Bricklink brand new for at least $35. Because she's going to make an appearance in the Ahsoka show, and because we are getting that new 2023 figure of the character, there is some speculation as to whether or not the value of the original Hera minifigure will go up or down. In my opinion, it will probably go up since the Rebels version is different than the new version. If they were exactly the same, the value would go down. However, because they are different enough, I think fans of the Ahsoka show, fans of Rebels who don't have this Hera minifigure are going to want to go back and just get the original just so that they can have both the new one and the old one. So if you're thinking about getting this character, I do recommend purchasing her on Bricklink or eBay or wherever else you could get a good price on the minifigure before the Ahsoka show comes out and before the value goes up. If you've been enjoying this video, please consider leaving a like below and subscribing for more content like this. But next up, from 2017, we have the Episode 3 version of Aayla Secura. Besides the Clone Wars art style that I already talked about, the most notable difference between this minifigure and the Clone Wars version has to be the overall color scheme. The old one came in medium blue, while the new one comes in dark azure, which is a lot darker, a lot more striking, and I think overall does look a bit better. Besides the color, I'm just going to be straight up, this version of the character is better than the previous one in pretty much every way. You get very nice and detailed prints. You get reddish brown printed on dark brown and dark brown printed on reddish brown to create some super tiny details that you might not even notice just looking at the minifigure. Plus, you do get correctly covered hands, making this figure the best version of the character. You can find her in set 75182 Republic Fighter Tank from 2017. Next up is the latest version of Bib Fortuna, who is definitely the most unique, I'll say, version of the character that we've gotten. This version is not based off of his appearance in episode 6. Instead, this version is based off of his appearance at the end of Mandalorian season 2. So after Jabba's death in episode 6, Bib Fortuna decided to take over, and he's emulating his former employer by putting on a few extra pounds.
Hey, look at the size of that thing.
Which is why this Bib Fortuna looks so different than the previous two versions. I do wonder what LEGO could have done to make him look a bit larger, since it's not just his head that's thick, it's everything. I do think of Bomber the Dwarf from The Hobbit, how they added an extra stomach through his beard piece. I'm sure LEGO could have found a way to do that with this piece. It didn't even have to be dual molded with two different plastics. They could have cast the whole piece in light nougat and just painted the stomach and printed the stomach. That would have been kind of cool. Though honestly, I don't have a problem with him looking the way he does. I think he's a great figure, nicely detailed. Though like I said before, I do prefer the normal sized episode 6 version of the character, just because that's the classic character, and we only get to see this version of Bib Fortuna for about 5 seconds before, well, Boba Fett does what he does. You can find this figure in 75326 Boba Fett's Throne Room from 2022. Finally, we've reached the final minifigure on our list. This is the last minifigure who has yet to come out, but is slated to come out this year in 2023. This is the Ahsoka series version of Hera Syndulla, who is going to come out in one set. That is set 75357, The Ghost and Phantom 2. Like I mentioned before, we have the Rebels version of the character, but this is the Ahsoka version, so she is going to look different. What I do like is that her outfit is in the same color palette as the previous Hera that we've seen throughout all of Rebels. You got the brown, the dark brown, the green, and the orange, which to me you really need to have in order to have Hera. I think she would have looked kind of weird with completely different colors. Even without the orange, I think she would have looked a bit too plain. The one thing I did notice was that the previous version had green eyes, while this version has blue eyes. This figure looks like it was produced very, very well, especially based off of the images that we have right now. Like I said, this minifigure is still yet to come out, so while I don't have one in hand and we don't have actual physical images of what the product is going to look like, there doesn't seem to be any strange printing that could happen, right? There's no white on top of another color in this minifigure. I'm going to predict that this minifigure is going to look pretty nice. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching my video. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite Twi'lek minifigure that LEGO Star Wars has made? Do you have any of these figures? Are there any that you still want to add to your collection? With that being said, keep building, have a good day, God bless, and I will see you all in the next video on my channel, Pete's Bricks.